Hello, today we will be presenting to you our latest idea for game development. We wanted to take a new approach to an idea that has been around, namely hunting. The one thing that always seemed to be left out of this genre was ownership for the gamer. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that every game has a scoring system. Everyone knows about high scores and inputting initials. That's been done and has been around since the 80s. Our game, though, allows our hunter to grow from a novice outdoorsman into an expert in all aspects of outdoor life. Some of the particulars of today's presentation will be the audience and the skill level, the game setting and the characters, the player interactions, the objectives, rules, and the limits of our game, as well as the individual platforms and our rationale. We'll also be talking about the actual tools and the resources we will need to develop this game. As I said before, this game is taking a new approach to not just hunting, but the aspect of game ownership. And for that reason, this is just the first installment in a series of games. Now, our game, in order to allow for the growth of the player, we decided to go with a sandbox approach. This sets us apart from other hunting games in that your hunter doesn't just play through the game and get a score for hunting the biggest deer or how many points are on an elk. Your hunter can actually grow, and you decide how they grow, their particular skill sets, and this will actually impact not only how they hunt, but their survival skills as the series of games progresses. Now, our audience level for this game, obviously, because we do have a little bit of a touchy subject involved, whereas you are actually shooting game. The audience that we decided on was from 7 to adult, and this can be any skill level from the novice gamer to an expert gamer. We also wanted to draw in hunters who may be non-gamers. So for that reason, we started off with hunting in our series. But because we also wanted to draw in those that call themselves hardcore gamers, we wanted to give the gamer the experience that their character doesn't just end with the game. Their actual experience continues on throughout the series, and thus the choices they make will determine how well their character grows and in what skill sets they grow better at. Now, hunting is one of the more popular genres, which is why we initially started with this in our series. We feel that if we can get those gamers that are maybe not so interested in hunting, or we can get the hunters that think that video gaming is for children, we can actually bring those two groups together and make them fans of our series. And for that reason, we actually went on to discuss and decide that we needed to make the settings more interactive and engaging. So we have locations such as mountains, woods, rivers, swamps, and lakes. Basically, wherever you would find game at, from big game to squirrels or rodents, anything anybody might hunt, not just in one region of the United States or one particular region of the world, but worldwide. So for that reason, we also didn't make this just a game about the United States or just a game about Canada. This is a game about hunting worldwide. And the series will continue with that concept of being a global game and not just a regional game. This should help attract more of the non-gamers as well as the folks in Europe. Anyone who likes to hunt, no matter what language or region of the world they're in. This should be entertaining for everyone. The particular characters involved are obviously the hunter, who we talked about, and that will also be our main focus for the gamer because, as I said, this will not be about high scores. It will be about the growth of the character himself or herself in that case. One of the other things that I'd like to mention is that this will be a first-person perspective. So those who are into first-person shooting games should also be able to pick this game up very easily and find that their likeness of the first-person shooter genre should draw them into this game as well. We included all non-player characters that we could think of as well. Mostly the animals that are being hunted in this particular installment of the series. So we have birds, squirrels, deer, elk, wild hogs, etc. Whatever could be included in a hunting expedition anywhere in the world will be found within the game and will be particular to the region that the gamer is hunting in for that particular session of their gaming experience.
Player interactions. A player is able to learn skills required to succeed on a reasonable difficulty curve. At times, players are presented with a gameplay experience that, while fluid and seamless, does not provide ease of accessibility to all players as a whole. While all games have a required set of rules, the requirements for ensuring that all rules are presented in a fashion in which a large majority of players can understand the skills required to progress, while at the same time allowing room for the player to reach the ceiling of the skill of the game that can be provided at that time. The player has a capability to do actions that may be out of the limit of the player's reality of a skill. Within a game, many times there are actions that require such complexity that it would be far out of the realm of the player to reenact in reality. However, the game should be able to allow players to do such an action if so required in order to provide for a more streamlined gaming experience. The controls should mimic their real-life counterparts and be as close to perfect in that aspect as possible. Players should be able to see and be able to understand their progression and or improvement of a skill, as well as being able to understand and to see the increase in difficulty during actual gameplay. Progression as well as improvement of a player's skill should be the statistics that a player can see and understand while actively engaged in gameplay. This not only allows the player the ability to analyze their playthroughs, while at the same time providing them a sense of motivation. Players should be able to feel a direct responsiveness of gameplay controls and at the same time feel that each response is almost perfectly accurate in their desired action. While the fact of being a game is understood, realism is something that should be an objective goal and should be met in this type of game. Players should strive for maintaining and improving personal accuracy without the core gameplay mechanics causing natural significant restrictions. Gameplay mechanics and controls should meet specific standards of being responsive as well as accurate. According to players' interactions via game station or game console, there are many times where these goals cause the game to become unrealistic in its requirements. However, the parameters for this goal can be discussed further down the road in order to provide more or less leniency. The objectives, rules, and limits set forth in the game are as follows. Objectively, a player must meet a quota of a set amount of creatures within a time frame set within the game's core programming. Each limit will differ from each of the separate targets and would reflect realistic hunting limits. Realistic rules of hunting would be applied for the game as a whole. Players would be restricted from hitting certain targets, while at the same time being restricted a certain limit or amount of targets hit. Rules of physics would still be applicable for the overall game. therefore making certain situations impossible due to their unrealistic nature. Players will be limited depending on instrument used to a set amount of attempts to hit any given target. At the same time, each attempt will be limited to a realistic speed and distance, each being limited to a set minimum and a set maximum range. Attempts at a target will be controlled from a day-to-day period. This means the player will only be allowed a set number of attempts with any given instrument per day, without the possibility of unrealistic replenishment. Each gameplay day will be limited for a set amount of scaled time, determined by programming found within the game software. This means that the gameplay day will progress without being controlled in any way by the player. While players are limited in the amount of attempts per day, if the attempts are met before the set gameplay day has completed, the player will either be rewarded for their success, or in the case of a failure to meet the quota, the player will be advanced to the next day. However, they will not have the possibility of instrument improvement until the quota is met.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Keys, and I'm a member of the team supporting the development of the game The Outdoorsman. Now, The Outdoorsman is going to be a series of games beginning with the hunt, and if selected, will continue on to the survival. However, I'm not really going to talk much about the details of the game, as you have already met my other two team members, James and Evan, who have already explained to you the basic game idea, the characters and their interactions, as well as the objectives and limits of the game. My goal is to introduce you to the platforms for which we plan to develop the game on. According to the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, nearly 67% of Americans say they play video games, with the largest numbers going to the video game consoles, Xbox and PlayStation. So for our team, we plan to focus our energies and efforts in developing the outdoorsman for both those consoles. Also, according to Pew and Nielsen, nearly 50% of Americans say nearly 50% of Americans own some sort of smart device, whether it's the Apple's iPhone on the iOS system or it's the Samsung Galaxy S4 on the Android system. My team and I feel that if we focus our efforts on both these groups, the video gaming console, primarily Xbox and the PlayStation, and the mobile device gamers using the Android and iOS system, we will expose the outdoorsmen to the largest population of gamers within both the mobile community and in the console community. Now, the tools required to bring the outdoorsman from a concept into a product are fairly simple. For the console, what we will require is a software development kit. And software development kit will come from both Sony and Microsoft for their particular system. Now, the requirements to obtain the software development kit are simple. First, you must be a company, which we are, and two, you must have experience in software development, which we have extensive experience in software development. Now, for the mobile devices, we went with a commercial off-the-shelf product called the Game Maker. Now, Game Maker has the tools and resources for us to develop the game for Apple's iOS system, for the iPhone, and for the Android system, which works on multiple phones. And it also has the additional capability of allowing you to develop games for the PC if you need to venture into that arena as well. Now, this particular piece of software, with all its tools and resources, comes at a price. This software is estimated at $799 to purchase off the shelf. Now, for some of you, you may feel that this is kind of steep in price. However, according to the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, the game industry is a $10.5 billion industry. So With that being said, even if the outdoorsman were to achieve marginal success, we would still see significant gains in comparison to our initial investment of $799. So I think my team and I have a solid concept for the game. A solid we've already figured out the target audience that we want to aim the game at. And I think we have the best possible chance of developing the game and moving on to a series of games beyond even survival and expanding beyond just the mobile gaming devices and the console games and venturing off into the PC. So I hope we've given you enough information to select our game to move forward in the planning and production process